The psychology of the lazy yet ambitious, through the lens of the Japanese and the samurai. There is a quiet kind of pain that many people carry, yet few ever dare to name. It is not the pain of incompetence, nor the pain of having no dreams. It is the pain of people who are deeply ambitious, yet stuck in place. People who can clearly see their best future self, but wake up each morning without the strength to pull themselves out of the familiar cycle of procrastination. They are not unintelligent. They are not lacking potential. In fact, they often know exactly what they should be doing, and yet, day after day, nothing moves. They are labeled lazy. Worse still, they begin to believe it themselves. But deep down, they know the truth is far more complex. If they were truly lazy, they wouldn't feel so exhausted watching others move forward. If they truly lacked ambition, they wouldn't lie awake at night, tormented by the feeling that another day has slipped by without meaning. Their greatest contradiction does not lie in their dreams, it lies in their actions. In Japanese philosophy, this state is known as kokoro ga mayo, a wavering, divided, ununified mind. One half longs for honor, achievement, and a life of meaning. The other half fears pain, fears failure, and fears confronting its own true limitations. These two forces wrestle every day, and the result is this: neither side wins. The person remains still, while time moves on without mercy. The ancient samurai considered this the most dangerous state of all, not because it is loud or dramatic, but because it silently erodes the will. They had a cold yet precise saying: "The most dangerous enemy does not stand before you, it lives inside your hesitation." It is not the opponent's sword, but the moment of doubt before drawing your own that decides fate. Modern people too live on a battlefield, they just don't recognize it. That battlefield exists inside the brain, where comfort clashes with mission, where cheap dopamine defeats long-term goals, and where "I'll do it tomorrow" becomes a way of life. Repeated long enough, this habit creates an illusion: this is just who I am. But samurai never believed in a fixed nature. They believed in training. They believed that a person is not defined by fleeting emotions, but by what they do when motivation is absent. And here lies the core truth. The problem of the lazy but ambitious person is not ability, it is psychology, environment, and the way the will is trained. If you are trapped in this paradox, you may not need more motivation, you may need a different perspective, harsher, more honest, and deeper, the same way samurai looked directly at their own weakness and forged it into strength. 1. The procrastination loop, the invisible enemy. Every morning begins with the fragile yet sincere belief: today will be better than yesterday. In the moments after waking, when the world is still quiet, a person resembles a warrior entering morning sword practice. The mind is clear, intentions are intact, and promises to oneself feel solemn and real. You believe that once you start, everything will fall into rhythm. But the enemy does not wait on the training ground. It does not appear in a terrifying form. It does not challenge you to a duel. It whispers. One small action. Picking up your phone. Just a few minutes to wake up. Just a little relaxation before starting. And then, minute by minute, comfort quietly replaces discipline, while the original intention dissolves without making a sound. This is the procrastination loop, the invisible enemy. It does not force. It seduces. It makes you believe you are still in control, when in reality you are being led by the easiest possible choices. The Japanese call this state amai, excessive self-indulgence, allowing oneself to lean on comfort instead of standing firm through willpower. Amai does not destroy a person instantly. It weakens them slowly, day by day. What makes this loop truly dangerous is how harmless it looks. The day passes filled with perfectly reasonable excuses. I don't have enough energy. I'll do it later. I'm just tired today. But when night falls, the truth appears, clear and unforgiving. Regret surfaces. Self-blame rises. New promises are made.
Tomorrow will be different. Tomorrow I'll be disciplined. And then, tomorrow becomes today again. Regret, promises, procrastination, regret. A closed loop with no bars, yet it imprisons people longer than any prison ever could. In the world of the samurai, this was unacceptable. Loss of self-mastery was considered the gravest failure. Miyamoto Musashi, the greatest swordsman in Japanese history, undefeated in over 60 life-and-death duels, was not famous for innate talent, but for ruthless discipline toward himself. He lived for years in mountain caves, rejecting comfort and ease, because he understood a brutal truth. The most dangerous enemy does not wield a sword, it holds your procrastination. Musashi taught, if your hand hesitates in small matters, it will tremble in great ones. To a samurai, every act of avoiding effort dulled the blade of the spirit. One did not need to lose on the battlefield. Losing in daily life was enough for the soul to begin to rot. Even the sharpest sword is useless if the will has softened. The most frightening thing about the procrastination loop is not a wasted day. It is that the brain learns avoidance is safe. Each time comfort is chosen over action, the brain records it. Repeated long enough, procrastination stops being a behavior and becomes an identity. A person begins to believe, this is just who I am. From that moment on, great ambition becomes nothing more than a beautiful dream with no path forward. Samurai did not believe in inspiration. They believed in action first, emotion second. They trained even when they didn't want to, because they understood that willpower is not born from comfort, but from overcoming resistance. Every training session reaffirmed control over the self. Every refusal to surrender to procrastination was a silent victory.
2. The conflict inside the brain, between safety and mission. Inside every person exists a silent war. No gunfire, no bloodshed, yet one that determines the entire direction of a life. It is the conflict between safety and mission, between the part that wants peace and the part that longs to become someone of value. This battle does not happen once, it repeats every day, in the smallest decisions. Get up or sleep longer, start the work or delay again, face fear or hide in familiar comfort. One side is the dreaming self. This part clearly sees who you could become. It longs for honor, achievement, recognition, and above all, meaning, ikigai. It is the part that cannot tolerate a mediocre life, the part that aches when time passes and you remain unchanged. It whispers, this life must be worth something. Opposing it is the fearful self, an ancient survival instinct programmed to avoid pain and risk. This part is not evil, it is simply doing its job, keeping you safe. It fears failure, ridicule, embarrassment, and confronting your true limits. Whenever the dreaming self pushes toward action, the fearful self intervenes immediately. Not yet. You're not ready. It's safer to wait. And so, you stop. Bushido, the way of the warrior, recognized this conflict centuries ago. Samurai were taught that honor must stand above comfort, not because they felt no fear, but because they understood a harsh truth. If safety leads, life shrinks. If mission leads, the person grows. Samurai did not seek suffering, but they accepted it when it was the price of honor. Tokugawa Ieyasu, the shogun who unified Japan after decades of civil war, spent his youth as a hostage, living in fear and instability. He understood the value of safety deeply. Yet when decisive moments arrived, he did not choose the easy path. He accepted risk, endured decades of patience and iron discipline to pursue a mission larger than himself. By placing honor and long-term vision above short-term comfort, he shaped history. Modern humans are the opposite. Never have we been safer or more comfortable, and rarely have we felt so empty. The brain is surrounded by convenience, instant entertainment, and easy escapes. Each time mission knocks, comfort speaks louder. Day by day, comfort defeats honor.
not through one major decision, but through hundreds of small, seemingly harmless choices. The greatest danger is not failure, but silent betrayal of one's own ikigai. Each time safety is chosen over action, the dreaming self weakens. Each time fear is avoided, the mission retreats. Eventually, the inner calling grows quiet, and that silence is mistaken for peace. Samurai understood that courage is not the absence of fear, but action in its presence. They did not wait for fear to disappear because they knew it never would. They acted so fear would shrink. Every step toward mission taught the brain a powerful lesson. I am not ruled by instinct.
3. Dopamine, the great temptress of the modern age. Dopamine is not the enemy, but in the modern world, it has become the most dangerous seducer of human will. Our brains are wired to seek quick, easy, low-risk pleasure, because for thousands of years, that meant survival. When food was scarce, instant reward kept us alive. When danger was near, quick pleasure helped the brain decide fast. That mechanism once saved humanity. Today, it quietly drags us down. In ancient times, dopamine came from labor, hunting, training, and battle. Reward required effort, pain, and waiting. Today, dopamine requires none of that. A single swipe delivers endless stimulation, social media, short videos, notifications, instant entertainment. The brain becomes so accustomed to fast rewards that it loses patience for anything demanding depth, learning, physical training, building a career, or simply sitting alone with oneself. This is where willpower breaks. When the brain is indulged too long, it begins avoiding anything difficult, slow, or unrewarding in the short term. Modern people do not lack dreams, they lack tolerance for discomfort. At the first sign of fatigue, boredom, or lack of praise, they reach for cheap dopamine to soothe themselves. Each time they do, the will weakens. The samurai understood this centuries ago. Miyamoto Musashi, undefeated and legendary, lived without luxury despite his fame. He chose hardship deliberately, sleeping on the ground, eating simply, wandering forests to train, distancing himself from comforts that soften the will. For Musashi, hardship was not self-punishment, it was mastery of the mind. He believed, if you cannot control small desires, you will never control great battles. This spirit is known in Japan as voluntary hardship, chosen difficulty. Not forced suffering, but willingly stepping into discomfort to build endurance. Samurai meditated in freezing cold, trained until their hands bled, practiced restraint in speech, food, and pleasure. Each time they overcame the urge to quit, their nervous system grew stronger. Dopamine did not disappear, it was placed correctly, arriving after effort, not before action. Modern people do the opposite. We avoid difficulty at all costs, avoid fatigue, boredom, loneliness, silence. We let dopamine guide behavior instead of letting purpose guide dopamine. The result is weakened focus, fragile discipline, and vanishing resilience. Life becomes loud, but inside it is empty. 4. Laziness is not a trait, it's a trained habit. Laziness is not human nature. It is a pattern trained in the wrong direction over time. No one is born lazy, and no one is destined to live in stagnation. What keeps people stuck is not a lack of ability, but a chain of avoidance-based choices repeated every single day. Each time you procrastinate, the brain records a clear message: avoidance is safe. When this happens long enough, avoidance becomes a reflex. The Japanese have an important concept called kata, behavioral patterns. In martial arts, kata are movements repeated thousands of times until they become instinct. But kata do not exist only in sword training or combat. The way you wake up each morning, the way you respond to difficulty, the way you avoid or confront challenges, all of these are kata. The problem is that many people unknowingly train themselves into a bad kata, a pattern of procrastination, fear of fatigue, fear of difficulty, fear of starting. Each day you avoid an important task, you don't just miss an opportunity, you teach your brain that action is unnecessary. And the brain is an excellent learner.
It does not judge right or wrong, noble or trivial. It simply reinforces what is repeated most often. Avoid something long enough, and you no longer need to think about avoiding it. You avoid automatically. That is the moment when people mistake habit for identity and label themselves, "I'm just a lazy person." The samurai understood the dangerous power of bad kata. Yamamoto Tsunetomo, author of Hagakure, warned, "A small action repeated daily determines the character of an entire lifetime." That is why samurai did not wait for motivation to act. They trained kata first. Emotions would follow. Every morning, rain or shine, they practiced swordsmanship. Not because they always wanted to, but because the right kata must hold firm when the mind is at its weakest. The bad news is this: bad habits are incredibly strong. A flawed kata, once deeply ingrained, will pull you back to the starting line every time you try to change. You may feel determined today, but the moment fatigue or stress appears, the brain instantly returns to the familiar path, the path of least resistance. This is why so many people fail, not due to lack of willpower, but because they underestimate the inertia of habit. The good news is this: kata can be retrained. Samurai were not born with iron discipline. They were forged through deliberate repetition. When a new kata is established, no matter how small, the brain begins to relearn that facing things is safe, that action will not destroy you, that discomfort is temporary. At first, every action feels heavy, but repeated long enough, difficulty loses its weight and action becomes automatic.
5. The Great Misunderstanding About Motivation, a Samurai Lesson. Many people today live under a dangerous misunderstanding about motivation. They believe they must feel ready before acting, inspired before starting, motivated before discipline appears. So, they wait. They wait for a high-energy morning, a powerful emotional push, the right mood. And while they wait, time quietly passes, and life stands still. Modern culture has turned motivation into a prerequisite for action. When inspiration is absent, people permit themselves to stop. When tired, they assume rest is required. When bored, they conclude, "This isn't for me." But the harsh truth is this: the brain is not designed to pursue mission. It is designed to seek comfort. If you wait for your brain's approval, you will never leave the comfort zone. The samurai understood this centuries ago. In the way of the warrior, action always comes before emotion. There is no concept of training only when you feel like it. The sword is drawn out of duty, not inspiration. The body is disciplined first, the mind follows. Samurai did not ask whether they wanted to train. They asked, "Am I still worthy of my honor today?" Yamamoto Tsunetomo wrote, "Every morning and every night, prepare yourself for death." This was not pessimism. It was a reminder that procrastination has no place. When a samurai understands that time is finite, he does not wait for feelings to lead. He acts out of responsibility to the path he has chosen. Here lies the core difference. Modern people use emotions to decide actions. Samurai use actions to shape emotions. When you wait for motivation, you hand control of your life to unstable mental states. When you act despite how you feel, you reclaim control. Each time you stand up when you don't want to, the brain learns, "I am not ruled by emotion." Motivation is then created after action, not before. Training in the warrior path was not always energetic. There were cold, rainy days, aching bodies, heavy spirits. And yet, the samurai trained, not because they were stronger than others, but because they did not negotiate with laziness. Duty and honor do not change with mood. That consistency is what outsiders later called iron will. Modern people say, "When I'm motivated, I'll start." The samurai reply, "Start, and motivation will follow." Motivation is not the cause, it is the result. It is born when you see yourself moving forward, even slowly. It is sustained by small actions repeated, not by emotional spikes. Miyamoto Musashi, the undefeated swordsman of Japanese history, never waited for inspiration to train.
He forged himself daily under harsh conditions, knowing that mastery is built on days no one sees, not in moments of excitement, but in dull, repetitive practice, where discipline faces boredom head-on.
6. Perfectionism, fear in a refined disguise. Perfectionism sounds noble, but in truth, it is fear wearing a refined mask. It whispers that you need more preparation, more skill, a more perfect moment. The end result is usually stillness. Many people do not fail because they do things wrong. They fail because they never dare to do them at all. Wanting everything perfect, they choose the safest option, not starting. On the surface, perfectionism looks like high standards. Beneath it lies fear of judgment, fear of mistakes, fear of falling short. The brain chooses delay to avoid emotional pain. Under the name of better preparation, people trap themselves in endless waiting. Dreams don't die immediately, but self-belief slowly erodes. Japanese thinking confronts this directly. Perfection does not exist. There is no moment when all conditions are ready, all skills are polished, and all outcomes guaranteed. What exists is daily improvement, Kaizen. Not dramatic leaps, not breakthroughs, but being slightly better than yesterday. One small step, but real. An imperfect action, but forward. Samurai embodied this spirit deeply. Tokugawa Ieyasu, founder of the Edo shogunate that lasted over 250 years, endured countless defeats and retreats. He did not wait until he was perfect to act. He made decisions under uncertainty, accepted flaws, and adjusted along the way. He once said, "My long life was built on patience and slow progress." That is Kaizen in action. To a samurai, an imperfect battle is better than no battle at all. A swordsman knows his blade may not be the sharpest, but if he never draws it, the fight is lost before it begins. In training, they practiced while clumsy, corrected while wrong, and grew stronger while incomplete. Every scratch was a lesson. Every missed strike was refinement. Modern people do the opposite. We want to finish learning before doing, prepare fully before starting, feel confident before acting. But confidence does not precede action. It is produced by action. Perfectionism steals rhythm, momentum, and eventually opportunity. Time does not wait for you to be ready.
7. The fear of failure and the fear of lost honor. Deep within every person exist two parallel fears: fear of failure and fear of lost honor. They are quiet, subtle, yet strong enough to keep someone frozen for years. Fear of trying leads to avoidance. Avoidance prevents discovery of one's true limits. Life gradually shrinks, not from lack of ability, but from lack of courage to face reality. Fear of failure is not just fear of losing. It is fear of seeing yourself weaker than imagined, fear of discovering how much more work is required. This fear pushes people towards safety. No start means no failure. No attempt means no loss. But the price of that safety is an untested life. Bushido faced this fear head-on. Samurai were not taught to avoid failure, they were taught to confront it. In the warrior's code, honor does not come from always winning, but from stepping onto the battlefield knowing you might lose. A samurai who turns away out of fear loses honor the moment he retreats, sword unsheathed or not. Minamoto no Yoshitsune, one of the greatest samurai in Japanese history, often fought from positions of severe disadvantage. Victory was uncertain, sometimes unlikely, yet he stepped forward anyway. Not because he was guaranteed to win, but because not fighting was unacceptable. His bold tactics and unyielding spirit became legend, not because he never failed, but because he never betrayed the warrior spirit. Modern people face a different paradox. They fear failure, but even more, they fear losing their image. Fear of ridicule, fear of judgment, fear of no longer being seen as someone with potential. So they delay action to preserve a comforting illusion. I haven't tried yet, maybe I'm actually great. That illusion becomes the cage that holds them the longest. Bushido teaches a brutal truth. Honor does not come from words or potential, it comes from action. A samurai may lose a battle, but if you fought fully, his honor remains. A person who never steps into the arena loses honor without anyone else needing to judge. Kusunoki Masashige, a symbol of loyalty in Japanese history, knew his final battle could not be won, yet he fought anyway. For him, honor lay in doing what was right, not in the outcome. His death was not seen as failure. It became a standard for the samurai spirit. Better to lose with honor than live in avoidance. In the way of the warrior, the most shameful thing is not failure. Failure is unavoidable on the path of growth. The true shame is inaction, letting fear decide for you, watching life pass in silence while comforting yourself with, "At least I didn't lose." You didn't lose, but you didn't live either. Each time you don't try out of fear, the brain learns that avoidance is safe. Each time you stay silent to avoid judgment, the will weakens. Eventually, fear no longer needs reasons. It becomes a lifestyle. That is how honor is lost, quietly, through very small choices, day after day. 8. Redefining failure, the warrior mindset. To most modern people, failure feels like a full stop. It is tied to shame, a wounded ego, and the sense of being not good enough. That is why so many choose what seems like the safest option, inaction. If you don't try, you won't fail. If you don't step out, you won't stumble. Yet this seemingly wise choice carries a far quieter and far longer-lasting cost: stagnation. Life does not collapse in a single moment. It slowly wears down from not moving forward. The way of the warrior views failure through a completely different lens. To a samurai, failure is not a verdict, it is data. Every fall is a lesson. Every wound is proof that the path you chose is real, not imaginary. In the dojo, no one counts how many times a warrior falls. The only thing that matters is whether he stands back up. Miyamoto Musashi, the undefeated swordsman of Japanese history, did not become legendary because he never made mistakes. Before writing the Book of Five Rings, Musashi lost countless times on the training floor. He was knocked down, corrected in every stance, every strike. But he understood one core truth. Every time you fall and rise again, the distance between you and failure becomes shorter. When failure no longer terrifies you, true strength appears. Samurai were forged in an environment where falling was normal. No one expected perfection from the beginning. The only thing looked down upon was avoidance, because in Bushido, inaction is the most dangerous state of all. It weakens the body, erodes the spirit, and rusts the will. A sword that is never used does not stay sharp, it corrodes. Modern people often reverse this logic. They tie their self-worth to outcomes. One failure becomes, "I'm not cut out for this." One mistake turns into, "I'm just bad." And so they stop. But stopping does not preserve dignity. It only offers temporary comfort in exchange for a future that grows smaller and smaller. Bushido teaches that failure is only frightening when it teaches you nothing. A samurai may be defeated in a single match, but if he extracts the lesson, adjusts his stance, and enters the next battle with greater resolve, that failure has fulfilled its purpose. By contrast, someone who avoids action altogether rejects every lesson before it even appears. Usagi Kenshin, the dragon of Echigo, suffered multiple tactical defeats against his lifelong rival Takeda Shingen. Yet after every loss, Kenshin did not abandon the path of battle. He learned, adjusted, and returned stronger. That relentless act of standing back up forged a warrior respected not only for victories, but for a spirit that could not be broken. In the warrior mindset, progress does not come from one perfect leap, but from hundreds of intentional mistakes. Samurai did not hope never to fall. They hoped to fall the right way, so they would learn how to rise in the right direction. And as long as they stood up one more time than they fell, they moved forward.
9. Breaking the procrastination loop, the modern samurai path. Breaking the procrastination loop does not begin with inspiration. It begins with awareness, the willingness to face a truth few people accept. You will never feel ready. There is no day when fear disappears completely, no moment when the mind unanimously supports action. Those who wait to feel ready will wait forever. Samurai did not. A warrior enters battle not because the mood is right, but because duty calls. When the war drum sounds, he steps forward, heart racing, hands trembling, outcome uncertain. Accepting this truth is the first cut that breaks the loop.
Tokugawa Ieyasu was forced many times to retreat, to endure humiliation to preserve his life and position, yet he never waited for perfect conditions to act. He acted in imperfection, knowing that the master of the game is not the strongest, but the one who is not paralyzed by fear. The moment you stop waiting for the right feeling, you reclaim agency over your life. The next step is acting even when you don't want to. This is the line between desire and will. Each time you overcome inner resistance, even slightly, the brain learns a new lesson. Action does not kill me. Avoidance, on the other hand, erodes you daily. The Japanese call this process shugyo, forging the will through deliberate, demanding practice. It doesn't require extremism, only consistency, placing yourself repeatedly in moments where you must overcome yourself. Miyamoto Musashi did not become undefeated through inspiration. He trained in rain, in hunger, in solitude. He trained when he didn't want to, because he understood that willpower is born precisely when the urge to quit is strongest. Each time Musashi lifted the sword while exhausted, his brain was rewritten. I am a man of action. Repeated long enough, that identity became who he was. Samurai never started with grand gestures. They understood the power of Kaizen, incremental progress. One strike a day, one drill repeated hundreds of times, one ritual never skipped. For modern people, Kaizen may be just 10 to 15 minutes a day. No excitement required, no perfection needed, just don't quit. A small step taken daily is stronger than a giant leap that disappears.
10. Discipline is painful at first, and it is the only path. Discipline always begins with pain. There is no alternative. Not because humans are meant to suffer, but because all real growth runs against the brain's instinct to seek comfort. Samurai understood this early. To them, pain was not an enemy, but the strictest and most honest teacher. No one left training without calluses, sweat, and moments of wanting to quit. The human brain is designed to resist discipline at the start. When you begin a new habit, waking early, training, studying in silence, the brain sounds an alarm. It whispers, danger, fatigue, stop. In truth, it is not danger, it is the loss of familiar pleasure. The brain hates that. That is why the beginning is always the hardest stage, and it is precisely here that most people turn back. Samurai did not avoid this moment. They stepped straight into it. In Bushido tradition, there is a concept called kufu, consciously enduring hardship to refine oneself. Date Masamune, the famous one-eyed warlord, lost an eye to illness as a child. Instead of seeing it as misfortune, he turned pain into fuel for an iron will. Masamune believed, those who never learn to endure pain will never bear great responsibility. To him, every hardship was a lesson, every limit an invitation to transcend. Controlled pain produces strength. When you voluntarily choose difficulty, training while tired, focusing while bored, staying disciplined when no one is watching, the brain gradually learns, pain does not kill me. Each time you endure, the nervous system strengthens, tolerance increases, and discipline becomes less painful. Not because the path grows easier, but because you grow tougher. Avoiding pain, by contrast, creates weakness. Each time you dodge difficulty, the brain is rewarded with cheap dopamine and learns that escape is enough. Over time, tolerance shrinks. Tasks that were once simple feel heavy. People begin to fear even small challenges and label it fatigue, burnout, or lack of motivation. In reality, it is a will that has never been trained. Miyamoto Musashi wrote in The Book of Five Rings, "The way of the sword is the way of constant endurance." Musashi did not seek ease. He chose a simple life, relentless practice, and accepted pain as an inseparable part of progress. That is what set him apart. Not natural talent, but the ability to remain with difficulty longer than others.
The path of the everyday warrior. Ambition without structure is only a beautiful dream. Bushido points to 3 pillars every person needs to go far. First is samurai discipline, acting even when inspiration is absent. No waiting for mood, no negotiating with laziness, acting out of duty to yourself. Second is the Kaizen rhythm. No massive breakthroughs required, just one small step forward each day. So small it cannot fail, yet enough to avoid standing still. Third is ikigai, a reason deep enough to return to this path even when everything feels heavy. Life does not change in a single day. Samurai were not forged in one battle. They were shaped by thousands of unnoticed training sessions, cold, rainy days, boring days, days where progress felt minimal or invisible. Yet those days determined who they became. Tokugawa Ieyasu, who unified Japan and brought over 250 years of peace, was not known for quick victories, but for extraordinary endurance. He lost battles, lived as a hostage, was underestimated, yet he possessed the quality samurai valued above all: disciplined patience with himself. He understood that time sides with those who do not quit, and history proved him right. The path of the everyday warrior does not demand heroism. It only asks that you do not quit on the days no one applauds. Each day you return to what must be done, even briefly. You are forging yourself the way a samurai forges a blade. Each time you choose action over delay, you polish your own honor. Bushido is not reserved for battlefields. It belongs to daily life, where you fight fatigue, distraction, and self-doubt. Victory is not defeating others, but refusing to let a weaker version of yourself run your life. Samurai were not born strong. They were forged daily, and so are you. If you do not quit, if you move forward a single step each day, no matter how small, your life will change, not by magic, but by quiet discipline. That is the path of the everyday warrior, not glamorous, but powerful enough to change destiny.